our work right now on the planet is to bring honoring and sanctity to the invisible just as much as the visible. The invisible results are things like feeling good, things like feeling connected, things like our health, our well-being, a feeling of joy, pleasure.
Embodiment can't be faked. Once you're in an open state where you actually can see through a clear lens, you know, you're not clouded by fear, you're not clouded by the amygdala, you're not clouded by society's news and all the fear-based stuff, and you're just with you. Then you get to decide where you think we actually are.
It is possible to navigate pain with grace.
Energy is information. We're here to experience the full spectrum.
That worthiness is hard for you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is a muscle that we kind of have to learn how to access. You are not disempowered, and you have power in every area of your life all the time.
I believe that chronic illness is an opportunity for us to heal.
Health, it's a choice. Listening to your body if you so choose.
My prayer for the world would be that they would know the infinite love of God.
Aloha and welcome to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast, formerly known as the Embodied Healing Self Podcast, with your host, jenmons. Join me each week for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around awakening to your soul purpose through 5-element well-being. Thank you so much for joining in. Aloha and welcome back. Thank you so much again for joining me this week. We've been having a lot of conversations around, some of the things that come up in our relationship to the old story that we carried around, specifically as it relates to the energy of money. And so we're going to talk about that in this episode. You've heard me say the past couple of episodes that the conversations that are difficult for people to have are around sex, religion, politics, money, and probably food, based on my experience of coaching. So that's why it's important that we talk about this, because I know a lot of you listening have wounds and unhealthy relationships when it comes to money, and money is just an energy. It's an energy just like food, just like love, just like relationships. It's an energy that gives us more freedom to have more choices, because we live in a world where that is what we've decided is the exchange for something. And so today what I want to talk about is empowered wealth, the frequency of that versus greed, because a couple of the beliefs that come up as we're diving into the self-work about our beliefs around money, some of the ones that come up are like, wealthy people are bad, wealthy people are greedy. If I get more money, I'll be greedy. And, that's probably based on a personal experience that you've had, or maybe something that you've heard somebody say. But just like anything, of course, there's good and bad everywhere. And there are a lot of people with financial resources doing a lot of good things in the world. So rather than believing and focusing that one bad apple makes them all bad, I invite you to be in the energy of seeing that the energy of money can be used to create a lot of positive changes in the world. And it's one of the reasons I've become more passionate about it over the years, because what I noticed in myself, naturally having a little bit of a prosperity consciousness to begin with, is that actually held me back, because I always felt like I always had everything I needed. I never really desired more, but what I wasn't considering was the greater impact that I'm able to make when I receive more financial energy for the work that I do. It allows me to host more amazing retreats. It allows me to support non-for-profits in bigger ways that I wanted to than I could before. Bigger donations, bigger financial support, more opportunities. It allows me to give back to myself and my family and my community in more ways, because it's the energy of freedom that just allows more choices. And So I personally had a difficult experience around this where I don't think I ever really believed that, other than maybe what I heard people say, like you hear corporate America and, all these people are stealing your money, and I don't love the pharmaceutical industry, and I certainly have my own beliefs around that as well. But I also did have a personal experience where I was in a partnership, not a marriage, different business partnership, where the person became very greedy and just started noticing like the different energy around it. And I just wasn't aligned to the energy of it. So I want to talk a little bit about what is empowered wealth versus the energy of greed, because I think one of the reasons we stay small in the work that we do, or at work asking for that raise, or putting something out there that we've created that we're so passionate about. And I work with so many women in different industries that it doesn't matter if they're corporate or they're an entrepreneur or they're working for somebody else, but it all comes down to like there's a fear behind it. Like, what does it say about me when I make a lot of money? Like, people are going to judge me. And so there's this judgment of like, I don't deserve it, or people are going to think I'm greedy. And I really think that it's a time to rewrite those stories and realize, and you'll notice more and more women are doing this, but when we step into that energy of prosperity, I mean, just think about, let's just play with the fact that the energy of money just makes you more of who you are. Let's just go there. So if you know your heart is true and genuine and loyal, then you're going to be more of that when you have more resources, when your cup is full. If you are a selfish person that is very self-entitled, doesn't trust others, doesn't allow support, projects onto others, doesn't take responsibility, then you may become more of that person when you receive more financial energy. So maybe that's a truth. Maybe you become more of who you are because you have the energy to supply you. And there are a lot of people who receive more financial income and it never brings them the happiness or the peace that they're seeking because it's all for the wrong reason. Think of it as energetically happening from the inside out. That's what the energy of prosperity and abundance are. It's like thriving from the inside out. That's really the only way to make it sustainable and fulfilling, and to, take personal self-responsibility and not to be in scarcity or mistrust or thinking everybody's out to get you, or there's competition, or nobody's here to support you, or there's not enough time or money to do the things you want type of thing. So let's talk about what empowered wealth is. I think we know what it means to be greedy. Those are the people that are self-serving and, they really just want more. Like, nothing's ever enough. That's kind of the scarcity piece to it, is no matter what, nothing's ever enough. They can't lose enough weight. They can't look pretty enough. It'll never be enough money. Their spouse will never be enough. Their kids will never be enough. Nobody will ever be enough because they will never be enough to themselves. And not all the time, but typically those people tend to sort of gravitate towards that energy of greed. Now, there's a difference between having desires and being greedy. Greedy is a different energy. It's like an energy vampire type thing where you just sort of, consume. You consume and destroy. That's kind of like the energy, and you don't really care who's in your path. You just keep moving forward. And wonderful businesses have been built off that energy, meaning, probably a lot of really successful entrepreneurs have had to have some type of this energy to keep moving forward, probably just because, maybe they've been in some type of relationship that didn't serve them and they just had to keep doing what they knew was going to work for them. I'm talking more about the energy of just being empowered and having that relationship to the frequency of wealth from an empowered perspective, which is not scarcity, not projection, not greediness, but more of an inside out, thriving, prosperous type of energy. Because what I notice the most, and the reason I'm talking about this, is because a lot of you are fearing that when you welcome in financial abundance, that people are going to think that you're bad or greedy, or that you think you have to work too hard to get there, or that you don't deserve it. None of those are true. So I want to rewrite those stories. And that's where we shift to, well, what is the frequency of empowered wealth? It begins with gratitude. If you listen to my podcasts on prosperity, I did a couple of them. Episode 85 was the first one, the prosperity consciousness and the prosperity prayer. And then just a few weeks ago, we did the energy of prosperity and allowing your passion to create prosperity. It begins with gratitude. It's about being grateful for all that you have in this moment. And the second part to, once you have gratitude, is to allow clarity. Because remember, prosperity is not overwhelm. It's not a lack of time or support. It's getting super clear about aligning to only the things that are important to you. Only sign up to be the room mom if it's important to you to spend time with your child. But if you're doing it just to be that mom who helps out in all the ways all the time, ask yourself if that's truly in alignment with your inner self. So being grateful and having clarity are the first two steps in living in the frequency of empowered wealth. The next one is to have the courage. Have the courage to take the risk. To invest in yourself means that you trust, and it also means that you trust that people will invest in you in whatever way that is. So when I enter, for example, a coaching relationship and a person chooses to invest in themselves through the exchange of money that is provided in that relationship, then I am investing my skills, my knowledge, my energy into that person. It is a total giving and receiving. And for many women that I've worked with over the years, they've eventually created something for themselves in order to share their gifts into the world, either coaching circles or retreats, where then they've been on the other end of receiving the investment financially for what they are in return giving to their community. So it takes courage. And that first one's always the hardest. It's always the hardest. And then once you've done that, you kind of have like a price point, like a marker of, an understanding, I should say. What is it costing me to stay stuck where I am? And what is the price of my transformation, my growth, my dreams, whatever it is that you want, whether it's health or a healthy relationship or to create a new business, getting super clear around what is the exchange of energy that is worth it for me to take this risk? And what is it costing me to stay where I am? So it takes courage. The fourth thing that it takes is compassion. Because empowered wealth does not have attachment, because it comes from a place of trust. It's in the consciousness of prosperity and creation. It's also acknowledging your behavior and emotions when it comes to your relationship with money. And then having compassion for all of the stories that you've been through, the times that you've held yourself back, the times that you made wrong choices, what that cost you, and then also for people who might be going through the same thing. And just compassion for people with a totally different environment than you have at this time. And just, having compassion for people for where they are and what they're ready for. They may not have the courage right now. They may not know how to trust. In understanding that our behavior and our emotions that are linked to money are just that. and our stories. They're not actually truth. It's just what we've created. Because from that place, we can begin to see how we've created habits throughout our lifetime that relate to our relationship with money. You know, were you always was your mom like a penny pincher and a coupon clipper, or were your parents like hoarders, or did they splurge? Did you go on vacation? Was there enough? Did you get new clothes? Even if your parents didn't make that much money, or maybe you had a single parent, like how were you raised to, you know, establish your relationship with money, and what were the values that you used money for? Did you use it for healthy food or fancy cars? We all have different values. Did you use it to travel or a big house? Or maybe you were lucky and you had all of the above. But really starting to navigate your relationship. So empowered wealth starts with gratitude, clarity, courage, compassion, and self-responsibility. So the self-responsibility piece is really about integrity. It's about being aligned with your values. So that'll keep you on the course to living in your truth and your values. And you don't have to worry about if people are going to think you're greedy, because if you value authenticity, if you value truth, if you value connection, and you keep those things on the focal point of your big why, then people are going to feel that, because your vision and your why are so much bigger than you. And so the radical self-responsibility piece is taking responsibility for the things that you do well and the things that you don't. Not blaming, projecting, being angry, belittling competition or anything like that when things don't go well, right? This can happen in our family, in our marriage, with our kids, in a partnership, at work. It can happen so many places. And it happens a lot. But standing in that truth of just being empowered and clear and grateful and having compassion and remembering your big why. Because when we show up in our joy, if you're a music teacher and you show up and you teach music to kids, or you're a lawyer and you're representing people that you feel have been misrepresented before in some way, or you're a doctor and you're passionate about wellness, when you're truly empowered in your passion and doing it in the way that aligns for you. And I know it's difficult to do. It's difficult to, you know, sometimes for those people in those positions to be their truth. I mean, people leave their jobs because of that. If they're not aligned to the health values of the hospital versus what they know to be, you know, maybe they have a more integrative functional approach, or, you know, you could plug in any story in that, but aligning to what feels right for you, what lights you up, what matters to you, what your values are. And taking radical responsibility not only for the things that don't go well and just owning that, but also for the things that do. Receive the compliments, receive the support when you've created something that gives back to others. Taking radical self-responsibility for the vision that you have, because nobody else has that vision, not in the way that you do. And remembering that your why is so much bigger than you. And so that's what the energy of empowered wealth and the frequency of money give to us. It allows us to give more in ways that feel good to us, in ways that are aligned with our values. I mean, it could be in any way. It could be adopting a pet. It could be supporting a community, non-for-profit, or a mission house. Anything that you're passionate about. But there is an energy to money in that it does allow us to have more choices to support others in that way. You don't have to have it to do it. You can give your time. Time is an energy too, just as valuable and precious, if not more. So there are different ways to do this, and wealth just isn't about money. It's about intention. So you can look at this like, what do I give my time to? What am I willing to create space for? What am I really passionate about? Who do I really want to support? And we have to fill our cup first. Because if we don't, we step into that overwhelm and burnout, which is not prosperity. It's burnout. It's the opposite. It's like a drought. Like Mother Nature's drought. Not enough water. So when you're in the energy of giving and receiving, gratitude, you're clear on your why. You're clear on your why for your family, your community, and the world. You have compassion for people who are on their journey and, not quite in the same place as you. You have compassion for your own journey. You take radical self-responsibility for the way that you show up. Because we're all learning. We make mistakes. We just take responsibility for it. It's okay. Everyone does. No need to be angry or be the victim over it. It just is what it is. We can move through it. Understand that your relationship and your thoughts and beliefs around specifically the energy of money or result in certain behavior patterns. Have compassion for your patterns. Maybe when you get sad, you go shopping. But you have to recognize it first to shift it. There's an emotion associated. Maybe there's a need. You want to feel loved. And maybe buying yourself a new outfit makes you feel loved. But maybe it would feel just as good if your spouse just gave you a hug. Maybe that could be the shift. And just living in alignment with your values and understanding that the energy of money, for those of you that are healing that, as we are doing in our prosperity course right now, it just makes you more of who you are. It provides more opportunity, more freedom, and more choices. It's not necessary. And I just want to say that there's just an energy to it that provides so much more opportunity and choices. And it's a way of giving and receiving. So I want to invite you to explore your relationship around this. Like, just notice what landed for you, what came up for you. Notice the beliefs that you have around, what does it say about me if I become wealthy? Because I believe that we are living in a time where it is more important for people like us to make more money. I am tired of corporate America making money and paying people $25 an hour when they have been working there for 20 years. I think it's not right. And we live in a country where we have the freedom to choose. We just have to believe that it's possible. That doesn't mean quit your job, go create something now. It means where you are is the vehicle for the next thing. You have to become curious about it first. You have to be willing to try. You could just do something for fun, create something non-for-profit in the community, create a circle for women, just something, maybe a play group with moms. But just be willing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to know what you think. Thank you so much for joining me again and continuing to come back week after week. I'm excited to see you again next week, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Aloha.
The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining again each week on the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast, formerly the Embodied Healing Self Podcast. I am so deeply honored to share this space with you every week. I know that there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and our community is expanding and growing more with each new episode. I'd like to invite you to come on over to jenmons.com/tribe and receive some of the wonderful gifts that we have for you. A meditation bundle, energetic alignment, 5-element wealth, prosperity consciousness. We have a ton of different gifts available for you to enjoy. Now, we have one small favor to ask. In order for this podcast to get into the hearts and souls of like and light-minded people, we need your support. We would love your review and would love it if you'd head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review or leave one on iTunes so that we can continue to share the love beyond out into the world. Thank you so much again for joining in. We'll see you next week.